Hi, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. Welcome back to season 3. And this episode, we're going to be looking at what it means to be humble and how men can actually start to embrace that part of their lives to actually connect with others. Hi, this is Joey Buzzatill, and welcome back to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. And today we're going to be speaking to Mr. Gold. I love that name. And we're going to be speaking to David Gold, who's actually in the Gold Coast in America, in Florida, and he's going to be talking to us about being humble. Sir, happy birthday. How are you, David?
I'm great. I was thinking of walking up the steps to do this podcast. I wonder what it means to be humble. So this will be a surprise because it evolves. It's something that evolves daily. So this will be a surprise for all of us.
Yeah, and you are celebrating your birthday.
I am. I mean, I like to think I don't look it, but I turned 70 a couple of days ago.
You don't look it. You know what you look like? You look like, I look at your face and you remind me of a very comfortable uncle that you just want to hang out with, and you just feel really comfortable to be around. So I hope you're having a good birthday, and thank you for deciding to spend 30 minutes with us when you could be doing other things.
No, this is, and I have to say that the feeling is mutual. One of my spiritual teachers says that authenticity is contagious. And I think that's.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to just tell our listeners a little bit about you? Like, I sort of had a bit of a chat with you just before we started, and I really know that you've got these interesting things to tell us. So tell us a bit about your history or your background.
Well, so I got 70 years to cover in 30 minutes. I'll cover it as fast as I can. I would say the most defining aspect of my life is that I've always had a dual fascination, or maybe a dual destiny. And one, I mean, I'm kind of your classic overachieving Jewish businessman. I grew up in the North. I was a trial lawyer for 15 years. I've been an entrepreneur for another, I guess 30 or so, starting businesses, selling business, helping others. So I've had that part, but I've also had a very, very deep spiritual, I would formally call a spiritual interest. And in fact, I ended up in West Virginia practicing law because I moved in with this crazy wisdom Zen master in West Virginia, which probably doesn't mean much to your people, but it's kind of.
I like that. I actually like Zen masters and all that, because I am a little bit. If I can just interject, how does a lawyer become like what normally lawyers are, but
Exactly.
what was it? Was there a defining moment or a transitional moment, or do you think that you've always had that interest?
Well, I think in terms of me, like the spirituality and the law.
Yeah, like because the law is quite black and white.
Yes.
And yeah,
It's interesting you say that, because when I met this, I wasn't looking for spirituality. I just happened to meet someone who had a profound experience, and I was in kind of a vulnerable or receptive place in my life, and he cracked my head wide open. And when that happened, I was open to possibilities that I never could have considered.
yeah.
And in fact, I went down and I stayed on his farm for a while, and I found a peace and an equanimity and a purpose that was, I thought, this will outstrip anything I could ever achieve in life, even though I had this really strong kind of genetic and personality background in that. And I went to my teacher and I said, Rose, Mr. Rose, I'm going to quit. I'm not going to go be a lawyer. I just want to stay here on the farm and meditate. And he said, you're not. He said, you're not meant to be a wood chopping monk. So at that point, it was like, here you go. You're going to have both of these things. And so I was a very dynamic attorney. It was certainly influenced by my teacher, who basically said, if you're right, you better, do what's right, even if you die trying. So I was quite determined and had a lot of integrity. I know I had a lot of integrity.
Yeah. Does that mean that you sort of became a different lawyer? You became a nice lawyer.
Well, not if you were on the other side. But I mean, I was a lawyer who I was if you wanted to sue the cops, if you wanted to sue the judges, if you wanted to sue City Hall, as we say here, I was the lawyer that they would come to. Wow. And we ended up with some very unpopular cases and some very dangerous cases too, which is maybe perhaps another podcast. But all the time I was trying. It was good because it made me think, what do these, and like my vacation every year, I took 30 days. I'd go off into the woods. I had a little cabin in the no electricity, no running water. I wouldn't see a soul for 30 days. I would just be by myself.
Off the grid.
And then it's like, okay, now you've got some equanimity and you've got some peace and you got some, what does this look like in the world? So my whole life path, I ended up selling my practice after 15 years. And and the practice is still quite vibrant. It's gone on without me, and I've had, I said, success in businesses, and some failures has come with the territory as well. But all the time, it's like what I've never stopped aspiring, or aspiring might not be the right word, but I've never stopped reaching and attuning to what the highest truth is, the highest goodness
Yeah.
is, the love is, and what does that expression look like? Not just in a cabin
Yeah,
in 30 days.
well,
30
I know,
after
I know
30
we're talking
days.
about humble, and we'll come to that. But I mean, this is
Yeah.
interesting in itself. Like, because like I love that, because I feel like I've just my mum passed away last year, and I really stepped into that space. Like, I don't, to me, I sort of feel a little bit annoyed that it took my mum to pass away for me to do that. But that's my journey. But why do you think a lot of men, because this is predominantly a men's podcast, like why do men struggle to let go and go into that place that you're talking about, and they still hold on to that materialistic, ego-driven persona of themselves?
Well, I just want to, first of all, I just have to say, Joey, and a lot of what I say I can't back up with logic, but your mother's death broke your heart in all the best ways.
Yeah, no, it did. But it
It
also gave me, I think, permission, because like this
exactly.
podcast and all these things I'm doing are in her legacy in a way.
Yeah.
That,
Well,
yeah.
it's her legacy. It's a continuation of her energy, and that you're carrying with you now and it's a beautiful thing. And so, one would hope with me, I got into spirituality because my father died,
Right.
young, and that got me, same way. My heart broke. I was looking for this. I think again, I can't. I think what happened is that your mother's death opened up what others might call it kind of the traditional, more feminine energy,
Hmm.
and because that energy was now so powerful and so released and it's coming through. So anyway, I just want to acknowledge the courage and the vulnerability, and I like that one of the phrases that I borrowed from someone else, but I use it as if it was my own, is that you want to talk from it, not about it.
Yeah.
So you're talking from vulnerability, from a place of vulnerability that was in a large part, triggered by your mother's passing, and it was a great gift to you.
Hmm.
Her
Yeah.
passing was a beautiful, beautiful gift to you, and just by being yourself, which is the best thing any of us could do with our lives, is going forward. So anyway, we could talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about
Yeah.
that.
So do you
But
think that? Do you think that? So do you think that because we both had a similar experience? So it's sort of like I sort of think to myself, do people have to experience something like a loss or something to do it, or do you think there's a fear there, and that's what causes men? Because that a lot of men are still they still need to transport themselves into a new like place. So
yes,
is it other, again, there's so many different variances. Is it men? Is it fear? Is it mothers that make them? What's your 70 years experience
let's
tell
take a
you?
deep breath. Let's just take a deep breath and see what comes out. I think it's a lot. First of all, what has opened me up more, I had 40 years,
Mm,
40 intense years of spirituality, of business, of trying to perfect myself. I mean, when I was a seeker, I was a celibate. I was balls to the walls, man. I was a
yeah.
serious.
And also in your, because for your age, I mean, it would have been quite yeah, a lot of people wouldn't have been doing it back then.
No, no. Of course, it was hard, and I was also very, very determined and very, very um, resolute. So I had all of these things. But what cracked my heart more than anything was
Mm.
when the love of my life, when Julie came into my life 7.5 years ago, and that was the best thing that ever happened. The
Wow.
worst thing that ever happened was part of it, and the best thing that ever happened. And I
I'm
can tell you,
excited. I'm excited to hear that it came in. Because I'm single, so I keep thinking, "Oh, this is the end for me." But you're
no, no,
proof.
no, 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 no. You just started. You're just warming up, my friend. You're just warming up. When our podcast is over, if my wife, I'll come over, and
Okay.
we've been doing podcasts together, with a lot of times for men's stuff, just to kind of get an idea what does it look to be a fully loving, vulnerable man. And in fact, I don't feel any less virile. I don't feel any more. I don't feel compromised. I don't feel like I'm giving anything up. I feel like my full masculinity has been released.
Yeah. Well, your full self has been exposed, and that's
Exactly.
that's the most important thing. We better get on to the topic.
Yes,
um, so
I'll get,
so yeah. So I want you to sort of define, what do you define humble as? How does one get their head around that term?
It's a great question. So let me just, and I like to answer as if I've never heard it before. So what does it mean to be humble? I, part of it is that I'm free. It's freedom from the need to be better than or less than.
Okay.
So
So it's freedom
normally,
from the need to be better than or less than. Is that better or less than others, or
yes,
or
better
the
than
world in general? Yeah.
yourself or anything. So I thought humility was making my pretending I was less than, but that wasn't humility. That was
No.
just the ego in a different form.
Yeah,
Okay,
and also you being a little bit more passive rather than being authentic.
there you go. And I realized it was as strong and as much of a. I mean, it may sound immodest, but as much of a leader as I've just been my whole life, I still surrendered a lot of that leadership because I thought, oh, I've got to be less than. I've got to be modest. It was pretense.
Mm,
You know what the modesty that, and I would maybe I'll use the word modesty as in interchangeably with humility at this point because it's resonating more with me in this moment. Is the modesty that I feel first of all is life has brought me to my knees in its beauty. The beauty of life has brought me to my knees,
yeah,
and in ways that I never could have. I spent 62 years trying to become a man that a woman like my wife would love. And she loves me. She doesn't love that guy.
yeah.
And if she loved that guy, I'd still be insecure because that's not who I am.
And who was that man based on? Your dad?
But that, I think it was more of the idea. Yeah, probably. But when I think the man, it's the same who we all think. It's some idealized version of ourselves because we've been rejected. And for whatever, whether they're the real reasons people articulate for rejecting us or whether they're the reasons we project on others, we decide, I thought, oh, I'm just a little skinny, guy, and I don't look so good, and blah 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 blah, and I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to be virile, and I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be that, and I can't help but get the trophy wife.
Yeah.
You know, if
And
I
and
was,
really and really you're describing all those things are really your masks, aren't you? You put on all these masks to go out. And I guess that as a lawyer, you probably had to do that anyway. But
yeah,
going back to what you were saying about how you sort of brought it down, because that's a big thing that I hear a lot, because I'm a therapist, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't." It's really hard for me to own who I am because it's bragging or it's this or it's that. They sort of struggle with that whole sense of who they are because of, and it's interesting to try and figure out where that came from. Why we're told to either be too quiet or you need to be this or that. Like we're not really taught unless you've got really good parents just to be yourself.
well, it's not, and even the parents can't teach it because our parents aren't. They weren't secure enough to be themselves. They
Yeah.
did the best they could. We actually have to break the lineage to be ourselves.
Mm,
And I find that if I am just myself, then I can be fully. I don't have to pretend that I'm not as powerful or as wise or whatever. But that is just naturally tempered by a recognition that there's something so much bigger than me that's working through me and working with me and working around me and has brought this to me. And
mm,
also part of this is I realize it's not my it's I'm a smart guy, I'm a wise guy, I'm a clever guy, I'm all these guys. Yeah, I can be all that. And at the same time I'm very intuitive. And I
mm.
know that this isn't coming from a lot of this isn't coming from me.
Yeah, it's coming
And
from
I think
somewhere
part of it
else.
too is my wife is my to have someone that you really trust and you really love and you really respect, who really trusts and respects you, who can, we were just funny. We were on a podcast the other day, and I was saying that when Julie came into my life and our love was revealed, I started telling her all the things I was most ashamed of because I thought I don't want to. And when I'd say that, she said, and then, and that when we went out and put a machine gun and went postal, and it's like these things were nothing.
Yeah. Because
But, but
this is why you've got a beautiful wife, is because she, rather than seeing only half of you, she sees all of you, and all of you the good. See, I don't really believe there's good or bad. I just think it is, right?
yes,
So I think that's a big problem with the world because of social media and all that. There's a much more bigger heaviness on the good. So in your, because you, I guess I'm going to ask you this because you've lived a beautiful life, but what do you think are the issues with generational men when it comes to that word? Like when you think of your time as a young man
yes.
compared to say some of the young men that you're seeing in Florida at this weekend or this week, like what are some of the obvious differences about how they see the being humble? Because I think that some of the generational differences are really quite distinct.
Yes. So I want to make one point that just occurred to me to wrap up. If you are yourself, you don't need to worry about being humble. You will have the authenticity will manifest as whatever it's going to manifest
Oh,
as.
that's really cool. I
Brought to
like
my
that.
or you know what, I'm really not equipped to do this, or I've just done something that is so out of a character to what I want to bring into the world, that humbles me in a way. Or it could be, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm having this effect. The
Yeah.
smallest thing that could just, it comes back, you've had this effect. And so I just want to kind of,
Yeah.
tie
I mean,
on
there's so
that.
many questions going on in my head just with that, because I also, I relate to that because when mum passed away, I went into that space and I felt like things just got generated, this sort of legacy thing. But I'm going to admit to you and to the audience that I started to sort of like it, right? And so I could feel my ego getting in there. And I mean, thank God it didn't last very long. But it's interesting how things can sort of get a little bit warped when you start doing things that are different because you don't know that experience because you've never done
Right.
it before.
And if I may, again, and there's some things that I want to mention to you after the podcast because you might not want to share them, things that I see. I don't want to trespass. Um, anyway, there was something really smart I was going to say, but I sometimes I wind up so long I forgot what the pitch was going to be. That I know what it is. That I have an attunement to authenticity. So, and I'm going to answer I haven't forgotten. The lawyer in me never forgets the question. Okay, but the authenticity piece is if I may, I smell my own bullshit.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. So it doesn't. So rather than me trying to say this is a moment where I should affect courage and bravery and superior, or this is a moment, if it doesn't feel authentic, then I mean, you can feel right now. I don't know what's coming out of my mouth next. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm not interested. Yeah, do I want to look good? Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Terrific. But that's not what's driving me. Is not am I trying to hit a note? The only note I'm trying to hit is authenticity.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
in that though, it's true. Like I'm the same as you, and because I had to learn through trial and error that some people that I thought were being nice or authentic weren't. But then I realized that I can only control me, right? So I can only listen to what you're saying, and then I can choose what I do with that information, and I choose in the most of the time to be authentic, right? Unless I feel threatened or uncomfortable. And the way that I learned to do that, it's quite funny, but it works, is I just imagine, like right now with you, that I'm playing a video game, right? And so I can only control myself. And I don't know why that simple metaphor works, but I can't control you. You're just a character in my game, right?
right.
You're not real. And so it really makes me more aware of my own attention rather than worrying about what you think of me because you're not real,
And
right?
if I Yeah, and if I can play off that a little bit, and getting back to like the tuning fork business is, like I say, authenticity. So authenticity is contagious, like I said, and so suddenly you may find yourself like you wouldn't have had this conversation with somebody else. You'd be asking the 20 questions that you
Mm.
put, and that would not be inauthentic. It just would. But here, there's a different kind of authenticity, which
Well, we sort of got off the page
yeah,
because
which
we're
is great. It's terrific. It's always better.
yeah,
What
yeah,
everything I'll put this out. Everything we want resides in the unknown.
yeah,
And so so if I'm on script, that's the known. If
yeah,
I'm off script, that could be the unknown. But the
yeah,
other thing I want to make the point, and then I'll go back and answer the generational piece too, because I haven't forgot that if that's where you want to go, is that authenticity is contagious. Inauthenticity is exhausting.
yeah,
And this is how I could tell if something's taking my energy, if I have to put something into it, if I, then I know that's just not, it doesn't mean that I won't be challenged. Doesn't mean if I've got something, if I got a deadline on my website or whatever it is, I might have to work until I'm tired. But if the very process of doing something, trying to remember who the hell who am I say I am? Who am I pretending to be? How does the idealized Dave Gold act in this situation? That just makes you tired.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I get really quite excited when I meet young men that can do that. Because I didn't really learn this until I was in my 40s. But there are other young men that I've interviewed. Like this guy that I interviewed that was only 21, and he was talking like you. It was like he was like a mini Jedi. Like but he had hippie parents, right? And so that whole influencing came from his parents. So that sort of ties in with the generational thing because I do feel, and I don't want to sound like I'm being anti young people, but I do think there's something missing. I can feel this thing that's missing, and I don't know if it's soul or if it's I don't know what
Okay.
it is.
No, and it's interesting because when I spent my first teacher only wanted to work with young people because he said your head hardens after a point. Most spiritual experiences happen, when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, and blah, blah, blah. And I worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of young people. When I had my software company, I was also mentoring students at the major universities who were in the area, and there was something very beautiful about the openness and the receptiveness of those people. What I feel now, there's an arrogance. The only word I could use is arrogance.
But
There is.
how did that happen, you think?
I think
It sort of came from nowhere, didn't it? I feel like it just sort of came from nowhere.
it's interesting. Even the people that I get, there's young people that I work with, like
Mm.
in different capacities, and some of them I have one that I said, "Can you mentor me in social media because I'm a dinosaur?" So there's a way that I recognize their skill set, and I'm willing to humble myself, if you will. But even with those people, I think part of it is wealth comes so quickly and so easily. There's a way of just making money that's so simple and
So
so easy.
you're thinking there's a connection between materialistic things for them.
I think it's that. I think there's just and I don't know. I've heard so many different things about it.
But it's interesting to talk about it, though, I think, because I think it does tie into, I mean, because maybe the way you're defining being humble, I think that there's a lot of struggle for a lot of younger people to be humble because everything that they're being taught is to show go on social media, talk about yourself. So there seems to be, I'm sure they may be humble inside, but the world doesn't see that.
I don't think. I think, again, without getting too political or social or anything, it's just the social media piece of it, and the constant me, and the spotlight that everybody is in their own movie, everybody's their own star. Everybody, if I wouldn't have been able to handle it. My ego was so big,
Yeah.
I would have just destroyed myself. So I think that's, and yeah, and I would love to. My first teacher said he wanted to age a bunch of young people, meaning he wanted to wise them up. And I would love to, if I could save people not waiting till they're 62 years old to just
Yes.
to be
Yeah.
themselves and to
Yeah.
do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I haven't necessarily found much of a,
Yeah.
much
Well,
audience.
I sort of agree with you with the money thing, but that's not everyone. I think my personal thought is that it's about time. Like, I used to love, for example, going down to my grandparents' house and sitting there and having an iced tea with them and talking because there was nothing else to do. And I think
Right.
that the thing now is that there's too much to do. And so there seems to be now an inbuilt belief that everything has to be quick. So that's why there seems to be no time for real connection. So if you're a busy young guy and you're having to do all the things that we've already talked about plus more, you're not going to spend time just being humble or connecting with people at a very superficial, not superficial, very simple way. So I think those things are now gone. Like I look at my own nephews and they don't come and visit my dad,
Yeah.
right? Because they're busy. Well, when I think about me visiting my grandparents, I did that because, I knew it was the right thing to do. I didn't even think twice about it. I know that it's a different generation, but I don't know. Time is now different. I think time has changed.
Very different. And
Do you think?
yes. And I want to add something. I'm kind of conscious of the time that we have here, and I want to try to distill, if I may, just some, and again, all this is all just, I'm making this up as I go along. But I was thinking, in the context of humility, that the more that humility comes, there's a certain surrender that comes with it. And I think you're not going to get a 20-year-old. There's too much testosterone. There's too much going on. It's just, they're just not, we're not biologically meant to surrender at that early age. It's a lot, it's a lot easier for me at my age to surrender, perhaps, but with my life experience. But the more that one surrenders, the more one leaves room
Mm.
for everything, but especially for the unexpected partnerships and collaborations that come into your life. Where when I say, no, this is what I do it. I'm me. I'm the guy that's going to do it. I'm going to, and then with that arrogance or with that already knowing, in Zen they say it's the not knowing. There's already knowing, and then there's not knowing, and the arrogance is already knowing. The humility is not yet knowing. Okay. And the not yet knowing just leaves space for so much more to happen, for surprises, for miracles, for love, for so many other things. And I can't, again, this is just something I'll share because I got no reason not to share it. Is we're all in an unseen partnership. We're in a partnership with things we can't see. And I'm not going to get into the cosmology of it. You can take it whatever you want. but I know that my surrender, my capacity to surrender, is what opens me up to be able to receive.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
and
and that's the thing. I agree to. I only just learned that again in the last 7 years. I had like, I'll tell you a bit later on, but I had like a medical situation, and I think that sometimes it's easier when you're sort of forced to learn how to do it versus I'm going to volunteer to do it. But I am
yeah,
mindful of time, so I do want to ask you one last question, if it's okay. Is like, because of the fact that you're such a vibrant 70-year-old, I just was interested in you maybe running through your self-care plan. How do you? What's your routine or ritual that's kept you, this kept you vibrant and kept you looking great? Like, like what
I always
like
said,
do you have a ritual? Like, do you exercise? Do you,
yes, I do.
because all that stuff, I think it's important for us to share, because you do look good, and you kept saying the word virile. I'm thinking, well, this guy's happy, so so
Oh, yeah.
we just want to know your secret.
Well, the first thing, the meta thing is that I do what I love, and then I ask how something makes me feel, and I respond with it, and so there's something about just that. I mean, I go to bed every night. Can't believe the woman that I'm laying next to. I get up every morning and think, "Oh my God, I got another day of life." And that more than anything has to do that. But and so I just got to say, it's literally the life choices that I've made
Hmm.
to not, because the energy that goes into a thing becomes a thing itself. So
But
if I'm going,
even when you were a busy lawyer, that was happening.
well, I no, I didn't have that much. I was at that point. I thought I had to suffer to get. That's a different story. I thought
Right.
the more I suffered, the more spiritual I get, and I spent a good bit of my time
Yeah.
disabusing people of
And,
that
and
illusion.
and when you think of that time, do you think that you're more energetic now than you were back then?
I think it's a healthier energy. Yes, I think it's a
Yeah.
healthier energy. But I would say honestly, I this sounds crazy. I'm not recommending this for anybody.
Yeah.
But this is just, I get up in the morning. I don't live in Florida. I'm down here on vacation, and I get up, and my I literally I take, let's say I take a cold shower. I go outside and I just pour buckets of cold water on myself, not to punish myself, because I just feel the heat, and I feel the love, and I feel the life, and I just feel all of that. And then
Wow.
I have a meditation practice that I do every day, and it's not really a practice. It's just a time that I spend with myself. I do yoga. I'm a hot yoga guy. I've been a hot yoga guy for a long time. I had to modify that through yoga. So, and I'm also I'm careful about what I eat.
Yeah.
I've just found and more than anything, I love being at my peak.
Yeah. Do
I
you do
don't.
you think that I'm just curious about the transition, right? And like, again, don't answer if you don't want to, but like, in your lawyer hedonistic time, did you experience the drinking and that partying and all that stuff?
Never did. No, no,
No.
I was the
Okay.
opposite. Because I was with
Okay.
my teacher, I didn't drink. I didn't eat meat. I
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really good indicator for us listeners, is that you can see that there's a thread in regards to that looking good and feeling good through your life and looking as good as you. It really does start at an early age. You've got to have that discipline, and you can feel the surrender, because when the way you're describing the yoga and the meditation, it just seems like it's just a normal way of life. Well, I think a lot of people struggle. They go, "Oh, I don't have time to meditate." But you can see the benefit of it by just listening to you. Because I'm the same. I get up at 5 o'clock every day. I meditate for an hour, and that is like, I'm so glad I discovered that, because it just gives you a different energy, like you were saying. I feel hot as well, so I'm going to try the bucket thing.
Oh, well, I'm not recommending. I'm just, it's just something idiosyncratic, because when I would take those 30-day isolations, there was no running water, and there were other guys in other cabins on the farm, and they'd go 30 days without showering. But I couldn't do it. So I would just go down to the spring, and I would get buckets of water, and and I hadn't done it for years, and I thought, wow, I wonder if that'll, and it's funny because now it's something that just being able to maintain this level of energy throughout a day of all the things that I do, it helps a
Yeah,
lot. But
yeah, but the statement that you say every morning is so simple, but yet so powerful. We waking up and just saying, "Look at this beautiful woman, and I'm going to have what's going to come today. I'm looking forward to the day." That simple affirmation, it's just so easy. Rather than people waking up going, "Oh, I've got to go to work," or going into that sort of, they just sort of open up that door to us being heavy.
yeah,
It is really quite simple. So, Mr. Gold, thank you so much
well,
for
thank you.
sharing your birthday and your time with us. I mean, I could ask you a million questions, I think.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
you know,
now,
there's so many things I want to go down. Like, I want to know how, like, you know, I want to know about I want to know what you were like as a young man, because I always get fascinated in history and things like that. So thank you and have a great
if
experience.
I may say also, if people want more information, there's actually my website is davegold.com.
Yeah,
Very
I'm
simple.
gonna all the stuff that
Yeah, yeah,
all your information is gonna be linked so
yeah.
they
But I
people can
want to.
get to you.
I would say I have a brief history of my life on there that I was. I mean, not it's brief. My life wasn't brief, but the history's there. And yeah, people. But I would say don't live my path. Live yours.
Mm,
And you have a choice every day. I can wake up and worry about all the things I need to do and feel terrible. That I got 4,000 years of suffering in my genetic race,
mhm.
my background. That's not where I want to put my attention.
Yeah.
It's where we put our attention. And you're
So,
positive.
do you think are you considered like a black sheep in your family, or are your family like you?
Well, I've outlived almost everyone in my family because it's kind of a test of my lifestyle. I think during my spiritual days, they wondered what the hell I was up to.
Yeah.
But right now, I just treat everyone I meet with as much love as I possibly can, and it's hard for too many people to find fault with
Yeah.
that. And if they do, then that's obviously their
Yeah.
problem.
Well, I think that, meeting you is like, you just feel the love. So thank you again.
Thank you. It's mutual, and there's so much more I want to talk off camera about because I feel some things that are, and I just want everyone to know how lucky they are to have you in that seat.
Oh,
Because not just because you're a nice guy and you're wise and you care, but it takes a lot to have your heart broken so that you can connect more with others. And you have chosen to have your heart broken so that you can relate to others. And I think that is a great gift that you are giving to everyone in your field. And I would encourage anyone and everyone who's listening that the more that you can get of Joey, the better your life will be because he's the real deal.
oh, God, now it's making me all sad. Thank you. So you've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. I'm feeling all tingly. Just don't forget that the new podcast is out every Monday morning, Australian Eastern Time, at 9 o'clock. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to make sure that you listen to all our back catalogue and all the other segments. Don't forget we've got a whole catalogue of shows, interviews, and information for people to help them with their mental health. Have a great week, guys, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.